Okay, started.
Om Yo Brahmanam Vidadhati Purvam Yo Vai Vedam Cha Prahinoti Tasmai Tam Hadevam Atma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Gurave Sarvalokanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam, Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Right. So last week, towards end of the session, there was a question about Dhanam. Was that question from Deepa ma'am? Who was the person?
It was me, sir.
Okay.
Yashaswini. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the sake of completion, maybe you can repeat that question in so many words that you had last week.
Yes, the question was about the two qualities, Danam and Tyag or
Hmm.
Tyaga.
Hmm.
It was about essentially if the explanation about the two qualities or what those mean. And Tyaga means that you give up material possessions, and Danam is to give those possessions or give something, say donate
Hold on,
something.
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold
Yeah.
on. So Tyaga is not actually giving up possession. Okay. So I said there are two types of Tyagas. One is a formal sannyasa. So the Tyaga word, the primary meaning there is sannyasa, but not many people have the courage or the favorable set of circumstances to undertake sannyasa. So what they can do is, in the meantime, develop a certain, say, mental detachment. It's more like a mental sannyasa. It's not a physical sannyasa. You don't leave the house and go to the forest or something like that, but you develop a certain mentality that you slowly detach yourself from your normal obsessions and attachments and all that. So yeah, continue please.
Right. To, I guess, in that sense, it means not to actually give them up, but to kind of detach yourself from the possessions. Like
Correct,
you are not your possessions,
correct,
essentially.
correct.
So the question was if dana means to give someone something that they need, then, but if that person who you're giving to or persons also have developed this quality of tyaga, then why would they need the thing that you're giving them? This was the question.
Okay, so logical. So if the person has developed that sense of tyaga, he will not look for dhanam, obviously, right? So see, in any transaction, you require two parties. If you want to give something, somebody must be there to take it. If you don't have anybody to take dhanam, you can't give dhanam. So in the Ramayana story, somebody commented, in Rama's kingdom, there was no dhanam. So from looking at it from one side, you will think that people in Rama's kingdom were so miserly that they did not give dhanam. But that's not the fact. There was no dhanam in Rama's kingdom because there was nobody who needed to take dhanam from anybody. Yeah. So dhanam, as I said, or any transaction, let's say you want to buy something, you want to give money and buy something, but if there is no one ready to sell whatever you want to buy, then that sale transaction, purchase transaction will not take place. Yeah. So dhanam is no different. So the very fact that somebody is willing to take this from you means they feel the need for it. Whether they really need it is a different story. If they believe they need what you are giving, then they will take it. Then the dhanam is complete. So your point of view should be not what the other person's mindset is. In dhanam, you don't question the motive of the person taking dhanam from you. Yeah, then that is no longer dhanam. That becomes more of a transaction. So when you want to give something in dhanam, you have decided that you don't want that thing. Yeah, you have no connection with that. You don't want it in your possession. So you want to give control to somebody else. At that point, it should not really matter to the person giving dhanam what that other person is going to do with it. Yeah. So you have completely detached yourself from the dana vastu. So it should not really matter to you what will that person do. He may sell it to somebody. He may take it free of cost from you and sell it to somebody. But that should not bother you. Okay. So do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
That
So
it's not won't be dhanam if you are still attached to whatever you're giving away. Yes.
correct. No, it's not only attachment to the thing you are giving.
Mhm.
It is also your attitude to question the other person's motive. Why would you be bothered? If you are giving something in dhanam, just give it. That's all. End of story for you. What he does with that other thing should not really be, your unless unless the thing that you are giving. Let's say there is an exception to this. Let's say you are doing godhanam. Yeah. Let's say you are doing godhanam. Then what you are giving is a living animal. So obviously you will not give a godhanam to a butcher who is going to kill that and sell the flesh. Yeah. So in that kind of a dhanam, yes, you have to be a little concerned. But otherwise, the person taking the dhanam from you becomes the de facto owner of that item, and your relationship with that article is completely gone. So it should not really matter to you what he does with it. Yeah. And the point is, the very fact that he comes and takes the dhanam from you means that he has not developed the detachment. So you have people in this world who have absolutely no interest in anything philosophical, religious, spiritual, and all that. Okay. So we cannot go and talk to those people about spirituality or religion or all those things. Okay. Similarly, there are jnanis. So when there are ajnanis, the ajnani, unless the ajnani develops an interest in acquiring jnanam, the jnani will not be able to go and give jnanam to the ajnani. So these are all examples of a transaction requiring two parties coming together. Okay. So I mean, I don't know whether I completely answered your question. If you have any follow-up questions, we can talk about it.
No, sir. That answered my question.
Great. Okay. So does anyone else have any other point to bring up, or shall we go to the 16th chapter list of virtues? Yeah. No questions? Okay. Then we will resume from where we left off last week. Last week, we were talking about Shanti, and while we were talking about Shanti, I had said that the other virtues like akrodha, where was akrodha? Yeah, akrodha came two virtues before. Akrodha, Shanti, and Kshama. These three are very closely related. And I think I had said something like akrodha means managing the anger that has already been triggered. And then I said that shanti is the avoidance of anger. So there I want to make a small correction. Akrodha is the management of the already triggered anger. That is correct. But this complete avoidance of anger is actually kshama. So the kshama virtue is the one that talks about how to avoid anger even when something happens. How do you make sure that it doesn't trigger an anger in you? And of course, we said kshama, titiksha, kshanti, these are all practically the same and they have multiple different connotations. So we talked about forgiveness and all that. Yeah. And what is shanti? Shanti is a general virtue where you focus on keeping the tranquility of your mind. So if you have a peaceful mind, make sure that the peaceful mind remains in a state of peace. So that's a general virtue. Whether or not something that triggers your anger is happening or not, shanti is there. It's applicable there. And this kshama and akrodha are then specific to a situation where anger is involved. So, this may sound more like hair splitting, but we have to somehow justify why the same virtue more or less in different languages is being talked about. So we bring about different angles of the same virtue and say this word means that and this word means that and so on. So whenever we talk about shanti or kshanti or kshama or akrodha or shanti, you have to somehow recollect all these points and put them all together in one basket. Yeah. So this is a little bit of intellectual hair splitting, but I think this is needed because that is how the literature deals with it. The Vedantic literature deals with it. Every word has to be explained and justified. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. Right. So we will now go to apaishunam. Apaishunam. So paishunam means gossiping. Paishunam means gossiping, and generally, how does gossiping go about? You talk about somebody who's not in the group and talk about their shortcomings and deficiencies. You belittle them or talk some juicy stuff about them which will put down their stature and all that. This is typically how gossiping works. It's very rare that you talk about somebody in very high regard or praising somebody. That's not called gossiping. So if a group of people sit together and talk about somebody else in very praising terms, in positive terms, that doesn't become gossiping. Okay, so apaishunam means avoidance of gossiping. Avoidance of gossiping. And what more specifically we say is that you talk about the virtues and good qualities of the other person if required, and not talk about any deficiencies or weaknesses at all. Talk only the positive aspects of a person. If at all you have to discuss a third person, discussing a third person is not really healthy. But if at all there is a context for discussing about a third person who's not present in that place, discuss only the positive qualities and good qualities of the person and completely avoid talking anything bad or negative about that person. That is apaishunam. That's a very healthy quality to develop. Okay. Then daya, bhuteshu daya. So daya is compassion, loving and care towards all living beings. And that is actually a hallmark of the Hindu Sanatanic, Vedic approach to life in general, and that is the reason why most Hindus prefer to be vegetarians, at least on most occasions. In India, even the non-vegetarians do not have non-veg food every day. So there are days on which they are strict vegetarians, and then there are other days in which they allow themselves to eat non-veg. So even the non-vegetarianism in India is a very moderated, practice. And unlike many other communities for whom having a meat dish on the table is a kind of a compulsory thing every day or even every meal, yeah, that's not how Hindus, approach life and food. So that underlying that practice is this injunction, so to say, or this teaching that you have to be compassionate to other living beings. It's not just other human beings. That's why the word bhuteshu is used. Bhutam refers to everything that has life in it. That includes plants, animals, insects, everything. And in the Jain tradition, it's actually taken to an extreme degree, where there are Shvetambara Jains who even cover their mouth because insects in the air may get into their mouth and may die. Or the sannyasis observe this Chaturmasya Vratam, which means for about 4 months during the rainy season, they don't step outside their ashram or wherever they are staying, because in those 4 months of rainy season, you will have a lot of insects and other small animals on the road or on the ground, and if they happen to walk, they may unknowingly kill some of them. So these are some of the very extreme practices. And there are some sannyasis in those days. I mean, today I don't think you have those kind of people today. There are some sannyasis who go to the forest, and there they only live on those leaves and fruits that have fallen on the ground. So they don't even pluck the fruit or leaf from the tree. So they only eat those kind of fruits and leaves which have fallen from the tree, which sort of they treat as though they are discarded by the tree. So that is a level to which our culture values life in any other form. It's not just that human life is valued, it is all life forms are valued. So that is daya bhuteshu. And that's also why we take this a lot of people feed the cow. And if you have other animals in the house, of course you feed and take care of them, but feeding the cow is a symbolic act of extending your kindness to the animals. Yeah, so that is daya bhuteshu. Okay, then aloluptvam means resisting temptations. Okay, loluptvam means succumbing to temptations, and aloluptvam is control, self control to the extent that you don't yield to temptations or addictions. Protect yourself from getting addicted. And in today's world, that's especially very important, because you have all kinds of addictive substances available more or less freely. You have cigarettes, you have tobacco, you have alcohol, you even have drugs, and you have drugs in very different forms. You have highly refined drugs, you have not so refined drugs. So all sorts of things are available, and one can easily get addicted to some of these substances, and then you can get into lifelong trouble. And that's just a very extreme example. And even yielding to some of the not so serious addictions, like some people take 10 cups of coffee or 12 cups of coffee, tea in a day. That's also a sort of addiction. Or some people are addicted to chocolate. Some people are addicted to sweets in general. So all these are addictions, and it's quite obvious. Some of these addictions can cause a long-term damage of health also. So in a sense, you are then damaging yourself. So why don't you get into a more healthy practice? But then the more subtler aspect of this addiction thing is, it is again a form of control. It's a form of self control. It's a form of sense control, and it's a form of inculcating better values in oneself. Because ultimately in Vedanta, the final goal is to somehow give up the attachment to your body uh, to a very large extent. And even in the explanation for dhanam that I said, the ultimate dhanam that one will do at the end of one's life is to give up one's body. So if you practice dhanam throughout your life, then it's that much easy for the person when he dies. He'll die with very little fear or pain or whatever. Similarly, this aloluktvam, this avoidance of addiction, is also a training in that direction. Understanding that while it is important to take care of the body and to satisfy the physical needs of the body, one should not pamper the body beyond a point. So taking good care and pampering, they are two very different things. Yeah. So while you can eat healthy food, stay within the limits and avoid any kind of temptation to overeat or overdo things. So that is aloluktvam. Then mardavam. So mardavam, the word mardavam comes from the word mrudu. Mrudu means soft. So mardavam means softness. And in this case, we define softness in two angles or two perspectives. So the jnani or the mature person will be extremely soft when he is dealing with other persons. So he will deal with other persons as though he is dealing with a soft petal or soft flower or something like that. But when others give him experiences, he must be hard like diamond, or hard like whatever the hardest substance you can think of. He must be as hard as a diamond in taking even the toughest experience that comes to him. Yeah. So while you give experiences to others, you are very soft and very polite, and as though you are handling a fragile object. But in the opposite direction, when some people are giving you tough experiences, you should not say I am soft and then get into a depression and get hurt and all that. Those hard experiences that come to you, you take them like a diamond would take a knock, and be unfazed and unruffled, and be resilient. Okay, so it's a dual what shall I say, you develop a dual nature, that in one direction you are soft and in the other direction you are hard and tough. But in general, what you see is the most people have the dual nature, but have it in the opposite direction. When they deal with others, they are really hard and harsh and very shall we say impolite and all that. And when others deal with them, they expect them to be very polite, and they're very sensitive to others utterances and all that. It should be exactly the reverse. So you deal with others in a very soft manner, and you accept anything that comes to you without any without being affected. So that is the significance of mardavam. So it is not softness in both directions. It is softness in one direction and hardness in the other direction. That is mardavam. Then hrihi. The word hri actually means a sense of shame. I would say modesty. So it's a sense of shame, in the sense one should be ashamed of doing certain things in the open or in the public. Okay. And so avoiding embarrassing, actions in public or even in a small group, and maintaining one's modesty, that's the real meaning of hrihi. So that means in every situation one has to be very circumspect and make sure that whatever we say or whatever we do is not upsetting the situation. It is not, you don't act like a bull in a china shop. To give a very extreme example, some people, when they enter into a room or in a group having a conversation, they immediately tend to demolish everybody around, and establish their supremacy and so on. So that's exactly the opposite of hrihi. So when you enter a group or enter a room or interact with people, being circumspect and watchful and cautious about how your words or actions may affect others, it's more out of respect for the others. It's not that you're afraid of them or anything. It is not contradicting the abhayam virtue that I talked about. In the abhayam virtue, I said that it is to develop a certain confidence in the face of opposition. This is a little mirror image of that. So you don't create a conflict for others. That is hrihi. Yeah. And you can include all kinds of activities under hrihi. Like for instance, in the Indian context, if you go to some place very inappropriately dressed, for instance, yeah, so that's a very important element in Indian life, at least. So if you go to a temple, you have to be dressed in a certain conservative way, and that is your way of paying respect to the temple. Or when you are going to meet some elders, you dress modestly. Yeah. So you take care that your dress doesn't offend the elders who may have a more conservative approach to the world and all that. So it is respecting the others emotions and feelings and accommodating that. All that is part of hrihi. Yeah. Then achapalam. So chapalam practically means being fidgety at a physical level. There are a lot of people who may move their hands or legs or body unnecessarily without reason. They keep moving their legs, or they keep dancing like this for no reason. Yeah. It's a sign of restlessness. So it's like their body moves involuntarily without their control. So this achapalam is a virtue that one has to develop, that you are aware of your body, you're aware of what your limbs are doing. It may even include, some people have this habit of talking to themselves. They keep muttering something to themselves, even though there may be nobody around, or even when people are around, they are not talking to anybody, but they're muttering to themselves. That could also be part of this chapalam. So avoidance of all these kind of fidgety movements and fidgety activities, and maintaining a dignified posture in all respects, in all circumstances, that is achapalam. So carrying yourself with dignity without the fidgetiness, you could call it that way. Yeah, that is achapalam. Then tejaha. Okay, the word tejaha, the tejaha has a lot of literal meanings. For instance, something is bright, you can call it tejaha. The word tejas means shine, and the word tejaha itself in some context means fire. Okay, fire. But here the word is very specific, in the sense Tejaha is a certain smartness or a certain cleverness that you don't allow yourself to be duped or cheated. You don't allow yourself to be taken for a ride. So it is in that sense that the word Tejaha is used in this shloka. So by Tejaha, what we mean is you are always on your guard and you are always very circumspect when you're dealing with others, that you don't get a raw deal. You don't get a raw deal. You don't get taken for a ride. And, you know, in some cases, they say, you're left holding the baby. You don't get into those kind of situations. So very careful and protect your own interests. Yeah. Protecting your own interests is part of Tejaha. And, if I may make this statement, today in India, the Hindus have to very desperately develop this attitude of Teja, because in lot of areas I see the Hindus are getting taken for a ride. And so Hindus as a community have to collectively develop that Tejaha quality and make sure that they don't get taken for a ride. Yeah, this may sound like a political statement, but I thought it's quite relevant in this context to bring this up. Okay. Okay, then Kshama. I think we discussed a lot about Kshama. We talked about Kshama even in the 13th chapter list, where it was brought up as Kshantihi. So as I said before, Kshanti, Kshama, Titiksha, and to some extent Shanti, they have all been already discussed in a lot of detail. So I don't want to repeat that. So we will skip Kshama because it's covered. Okay, then Dhritihi. Dhritihi is pretty much what we saw in the 13th chapter as Sthairiam, and it has elements of Abhayam. So Dhriti really means steadfastness. You are quite courageous and steadfast to continue whatever you decided to do. You know, you don't stop something because of some obstacles, small obstacles. Of course, when there is a big obstacle, you have to pause and reevaluate the situation. But when you have considered all aspects and decided to go on a particular pursuit, small obstacles or even medium sized obstacles should not deter you from continuing on that pursuit. Okay, so it is perseverance, endurance, courage, uh, you know uh, a decisiveness. All these can be brought under Dhriti. Okay, so that is steadfastness and endurance. I think I don't have to tell more about it. And then Shaucham. And Shaucham is cleanliness, which we already covered in the 13th chapter. We talked about personal cleanliness, we talked about the cleanliness of the surroundings, clean dress, and all that. So even at the thought level, we said Shaucham is, have avoidance of negative thoughts, uh, developing a clean thinking habit. All that is part of Shaucham. So there is a cleanliness at the thought level, cleanliness at the language level, cleanliness at the action level, physical level, everything. So cleanliness is complete, Swachha Abhiyan, more or less. Yeah. A comprehensive Swachha Abhiyan is Shaucham. Then Adroha. Adroha is a, what can I say about Adroha? Um, did I mix up something? No. Adroho Nati Manita. Yeah, let me recollect Adroha. We'll go to Nati Manita. Nati Manita in this context is pretty much the same as the Amanitwam of the 13th chapter. So it is avoidance of arrogance or ego at the thought level. That is amanitvam. So it is basically developing a certain humility, developing a humble character is nati manita. Yeah. So manita is manitvam, nati manita is amanitvam. Yeah. So that is nati manita. So with nati manita, we have completed the list of 26. I I still have to tell you about adroha. I'm, I sort of forgot about adroha. I'll try to recollect. If I don't recollect, I'll come back to you at the beginning of next class. Yeah, I'll have to refresh my memory on what exactly is adroha. Basically, it is. I would say, very broadly speaking, it is avoidance of thoughts, avoidance of any thought, even at a thought level, um, not to harm anybody. So you don't even think of harming someone. That is adroha. I think that is in some ways covered by many of the other virtues also. Okay, so I have to go back to my notes and to my Guruji's lecture to clearly say how adroha is different from, let us say, daya or sattva samshuddhi or one of those other virtues. So this is what I remember. Adroha literally means that you don't think of harming anybody even at the thought level. That's what I remember. But I'll confirm that at the beginning of next class. Okay. So we are now done with the 26 virtues listed in the 16th chapter. So if any comments, discussions, are intended or wished, desired, we can go ahead. You can unmute yourself and speak up.
I have a question, sir.
Mhm,
So you told about the addiction. So
mhm,
in addiction, I think love is also kind of addiction. So let's say we love our parents a lot. So
mhm,
if like let's say if I don't even talk with them for a day, I miss them a lot. So is it
mhm.
also kind of addiction that we should avoid? Like yeah, on daily basis. Like this is also kind of addiction, I feel, because this is for the like more in terms of we are looking, this is for a benefit or advantage of us rather than for them, like it's because we feel good when we talk to them. So is it also kind of addiction?
No, that's a very complicated question. One cannot answer this one way or the other so easily. See, first of all, when you're talking about a love or attachment to your parents or your children or to your relatives, brother, sister, whatever, all these relationships, there are certain duties that we owe to some people. And then, of course, there are some emotional aspects. And it's very, very difficult to finely differentiate which aspect of our transaction is duty based and which aspect is emotion based. It's all very mixed up. Okay. So I would say this question that you're talking about should not actually come under addiction. Addiction is the wrong categorization. It should be categorized under the general quality of detachment. You know, when we talk about detachment, where did we talk about detachment? Um, Tapaha, Arjavam, Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodh, Tyagaha. So, Tyagaha. Okay, so Tyagaha is probably one virtue which can come close to this. And in the 13th chapter, I think you were not part of the 13th chapter discussion, which happened 2 weeks back. Okay, there we had a specific virtue called putra dara grihadishu anabhishvangaha. Okay, so you probably have to go back to the recording from 2 weeks back and concentrate on that portion where we talk about this virtue called putradara grihadishu anabhishvangaha. So that is a very specific, point Lord Krishna brings up in the 13th chapter and says that you reduce your attachment, emotional attachment to all your relationships and all your possessions gradually, and keep it at a very functional level. And that's a very difficult thing for most people, because we are all brought up to it's part of our character that we care for our family members, that we care for our parents and children and brothers and friends, even friends. There are people who are extremely attached to their friends even more than they are attached to their own family members. And so all sorts of such attachments will come under this category. And I mean, it's not wrong, to want to talk to your parents on a daily basis, but as long as it doesn't affect your other activities, that's okay. Yeah, but one should not make a nuisance of oneself. In some cases, you may want to talk to your parents, but your parents may be very busy and they may not want to talk to you for more than 5 minutes. Yeah, so you should not be a pain on them. So as long as both parties are okay, as long as both parties are okay to talk for 1 hour or 2 hours, that should work fine. But make sure that it is not, eating into any of your other priorities. It should not be a detriment to your other priorities in life. That's what is important. Yeah, but otherwise, you have to decide when do you draw the line, and what is good, what is enough, and what is too much. That's entirely your individual judgment.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Right. Anyone else? No? No questions? Okay, we have 15 minutes. If there are really no more questions or discussion, I'll probably go to the yama niyama virtues, which come under the Ashtanga Yoga, and which is actually part of the Shankara Bhashyam commentary by Sri Adi Shankara for the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Dhyana Yoga. And in Dhyana Yoga, because the Ashtanga Yoga also deals with Dhyanam, so there is some kind of a compare, contrast, and an analysis of the similarities and differences between the Vedantic approach to meditation and the Ashtanga Yoga approach to meditation. There, this discussion comes, Yama Niyama. Yeah, so if there are really no more questions, I'll go to that part, cover it in brief today, and take it up a little more elaborately next class. Yeah, can we do it? My priority will be for any questions, yeah, and discussions. If there are no questions, we'll do this. Yeah. So, Chandra sir, you wanted to say something? You unmuted, or Shubhu unmuted?
No, I just said yes, please.
Okay, Chandra, you have question?
Even I want to say that continue. Please continue that.
Okay, great. So, Ashtanga Yoga is basically the approach of Patanjali's Yoga Shastra. In the very beginning, in the session 1 or something, I mentioned that we have 12 darshanas within the ancient Indian traditions, parampara or sampradaya. 6 of them were astika traditions, and when we say astika, those are traditions which accept the Vedas as a valid pramanam. So the 6 traditions are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa is also called Vedanta. So in the Yoga Sankhya tradition, the Sankhya tradition was pioneered by the Kapila Rishi, and the yoga school was pioneered by the Patanjali Maharshi. And Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras are studied by a lot of people today also. And that Patanjali Yoga Sutra is supposed to be the foundation for what we consider today as modern yoga. Yeah. And that Ashtanga Yoga is a framework under which all the yoga practices are defined. So it has 8 steps, as the name itself suggests. Ashtanga Yoga means 8-stepped yoga. So the steps are Yama, Niyama, then Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. These are the 8 steps. Yeah? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Okay. And here we'll deal only with the first 2, Yama and Niyama. Okay, so what is this Yama and what is this Niyama? So basically, there are 5 commandments within the Yama and 5 more commandments within Niyama. So together, my Guruji calls this as the 10 commandments of Hinduism. So the Yama Niyama, 5 plus 5, 10. My Guru has delivered a lecture called 10 Commandments of Hinduism, and in that lecture he talks very in great detail about all of these things. So what are these 5 yamas and niyamas? It is yama is ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, brahmacharyam and aparigraham. Ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, brahmacharyam, aparigraham. Okay, that is called yama, and this is basically a list of things to avoid. So which means ahimsa means avoid himsa. It's not avoid ahimsa. Ahimsa is actually meaning avoidance of himsa. Then satyam is not avoidance of satyam, it is asatya varjanam, avoidance of telling untruth. Then asteyam, asteyam means avoid stealing somebody else's property. Avoid stealing somebody else's property. Asteyam. Brahmacharyam. Brahmacharyam means developing a healthy respect for the members of the opposite sex. That's the general definition of brahmacharyam. There is a very specific definition of brahmacharyam specific to the varnashrama. We will talk about it later. But brahmacharyam, broadly defined, is developing a healthy sense of respect towards the members of the opposite sex, opposite gender. And then aparigraha means avoid amassing too much of wealth. Avoid this grabbing tendency that you want to accumulate a lot of material possessions. Avoidance of that. So limit your possessions to a manageable set. Don't have too many possessions that will cause problems for you. And that is also part of the other virtues that we saw under dhanam and all that. So if everybody is grabbing everything, then there will be a lot of shortage. There will be a huge disparity in the wealth distribution within the society. So it is also a very practical suggestion that don't accumulate too much of wealth. Okay, so that is yama. This is, we call this the don'ts. We have this do's and don'ts. So this is a set of don'ts, and then there is a set of do's. That is niyama. That is shaucham, santosham, tapaha, swadhyayah, and ishvara pranidhanam. I'll repeat: shaucham, santosham, tapaha, swadhyayah, ishvara pranidhanam. Okay, so you would see that quite a few of these virtues are already covered in the list that we saw for the 13th chapter and the 16th chapter. So there's a lot of overlap. Ahimsa we already covered. Okay, Satyam. Satyam was part of the 16th chapter list, and it is also very closely connected to Arjavam, which we saw in both of the lists. Yeah, so both 13th and 16th chapter had Arjavam, and Satyam has a very close connection to Arjavam, because Arjavam means integrity and Satyam means talking the truth. And you cannot be a person of integrity if you are not talking the truth. So they are very, very closely connected. Yeah. Then the word aparigraha is also very closely connected to Dhanam, and the 13th chapter virtue, which talks about asaktihi. There is asaktihi, which is not getting attached to stuff. And what else? Yeah. So aparigraha, I won't say it is completely covered in the earlier lists, but it's somewhat a little bit partially covered, I would say. Yeah. Then shaucham. Shaucham we saw, I think, in both lists. We definitely saw shaucham in the 13th chapter. In 16th also we saw shaucham. So that is a duplicate or a repeat. Then tapaha. Tapaha was also part of the 16th chapter. It was not part of 13th chapter. I don't remember if we talked about tapaha in 13th chapter, but 16th chapter definitely we covered tapaha in quite a good depth. Then swadhyayaha and ishvara pranidhanam. Swadhyayaha was part of the 16th chapter, so we already covered it. And ishvara pranidhanam is what I gave as part of karma yoga. I talked about the Panchamaha Yajna, right? So under the Panchamaha Yajna, the Deva Yajna and Brahma Yajna, these two will come. Deva Yajna will be Ishvara Pranidhanam, Brahma Yajna will be Swadhyaya. So that's also a sort of a repeat. Yeah. So basically what you see from this list is that we have multiple sources for giving us guidance on what kind of qualities an ideal human being should develop. And not everybody has the same view. So there is a lot of flexibility and there is a lot of shall we say consistency, and there is a lot of compatibility between these virtues. So they are not isolated virtues, they are not isolated qualities. The development of one quality will aid and help in the development of other qualities also. So they are all quite closely interrelated. So that is how one develops an integrated personality, a harmonious personality. And you could say that this set of guidelines or these set of qualities helps in the molding of an ideal citizen of the world. If if you can imagine a person who has developed all these qualities to a very good extent, then such a person will be an ideal global citizen. Yeah, yeah, but it's a very challenging task, but I think it's a task that is worth pursuing and worth traveling in that direction. Whether we achieve this much or that much or less or more is a different thing, but definitely it's a good pursuit. It's a pursuit that is worth uh, following and also worth propagating. Okay, so I have just briefly talked about the 10 qualities of yama niyama. I'll probably try to cover a little more in detail next week. I don't even know if that is necessary, because as I said, a lot of these qualities have been covered in the last 3 weeks, including today. But nevertheless, I'll try to fill up any gap that might be there, and I'll also come back to you on the exact definition of adroha. Okay, so for today I'm done. If there are any comments, any discussions, we can talk for a few more minutes. Otherwise, we can close today's call. Okay. Does it mean we are good to close? Can someone say yes, no, whatever? Right. Then we will chant the closing shlokas. Yeah. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Sarvesham Swastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you so much.